Good day, great people, and welcome to Angie 24 News. More breaking news unveiling in a moment for your watching pleasure.
Is 25% of federal capital territory votes required to win a presidential election? The nation went through a somewhat complex and controversial presidential election on February 25, 2023, and the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Bola Ahmed Adekunle Tinubu, who was declared winner by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC), has since been issued his certificate of return. It has become the norm that practically every election in Nigeria is contested in court. The 2023 presidential election is no different. Two of the other leading candidates in the contest have since proceeded to court to commence the process of challenging Tinubu's victory at the polls. The present debate amongst legal pundits is whether a presidential candidate must score at least 25% of all the votes cast in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja FCT, aside from the other two conditions precedent, to be declared winner of an election. INEC's declaration of Tinubu as the winner of the presidential election clearly evinces the fact that the electoral body doesn't believe that 25% of the votes cast in FCT must be secured to win. Based on the interpretation of Section 134, subsection 2b of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which makes provision for this issue. According to Dr. Olisa Agbakabar, SAN, 25% of FCT votes is constitutionally compulsory. Chief Michael Zekeme, SAN, also says 25% of FCT votes is constitutionally compulsory. Listen to what the former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Michael N. Okar, has to say on this matter.
It's a very difficult situation, but I think the matter has been interpreted before around 2008 in a matter involving the current President Buhari when he filed an action. The issue of whether that and in between, that is, must have 25% in two states and the Federal Capital Territory. I think the pronouncement then was that the and is conjunctively. That was the interpretation then. But you know, it's about 14 years ago. It's enough time, maybe. The Supreme Court may have another look on it. But as of now, that is the interpretation the Supreme Court gave in 2008. I don't want to go into details because the matter is now sub judice. About some states have already filed an action to challenge the legality of the election. So I am confining myself to what was the interpretation of the Supreme Court in Buhari's case in 2008. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I cannot go deep into the matter because already actions have been filed at the Supreme Court. And I'm just giving you an instance where there was an interpretation by the Supreme Court of that provision or a similar provision. The interpretation was that and federal capital should be construed conjunctively. In other words, it means you must get the 25% in 2 days, and also you must get 25% in the Federal Capital Territory. If you go by the interpretation of the Supreme Court in 2008. But I say, look, the Supreme Court have a right to depart from its previous decisions if the justice of the case demands so. So I don't know if they are confronted with similar interpretation, they will follow their own previous decision, or they might depart from their previous decisions. That's why I gave you that answer. But I will not go further because the matter is before the Supreme Court, and 6 states have already gone to court to have the election voided. Now, of course, the two political parties, PDP and Labour Party, also have commenced legal actions at the Presidential Tribunal, which is the Court of Appeal. So it will not be proper for me to go deep into the matter. And that's why I didn't even cite the citation. But it's a case I'm very sure was decided in 2008. It involved the current president, and a clear interpretation was given on that. It's going to be an issue because the position of the Supreme Court then and now are guidelines flowing from inec have constitutional flavor. The guidelines flowing from inec in the conduct of elections have constitutional flavor. Even in party politics, the Supreme Court has retaliated that party guidelines also ought to be obeyed. How much with, not to talk of INEC guidelines, which flows directly from the Constitution, because they get the powers to enact, to issue out guidelines based on the power donated to INEC to conduct the election by the Constitution. If they have consistently issued guidelines alluding to the fact that the result will be transmitted live from the polling unit, not just here, all over, even at Chatham House, it will be a serious issue. They will have good reasons to tell the Supreme Court or to the Presidential Tribunal why they deviated from that guidelines. And they must also justify deviating from that guideline did not affect substantially the result of the election. But it's going to be an issue. Not just an ordinary issue, but a very serious issue. Because the issue of others feeling that they have been misled, others feeling that there's improper motive behind the sudden change. Because if you have issued guidelines to the effect that results will be transmitted directly from the polling unit, and it becomes impossible, you have to also issue guidelines contraring that, varying the reasons why. But it does appear in this case that you are changing the goalpost in the middle of the game. That would be a little difficult to explain. But I've said these matters are before the court, and the court, Nigerian judiciary is courageous, very courageous enough to see whether that sudden change without notice created issues of transparency on the election. That will be a very great question to ask. The big question is, why did you keep drumming on that issue? They may have a reason, but until that reason is adduced, if at the trial and it becomes public, if not, the presumption will be obvious that something not right happened. Not right in favor of INEC or not right in in favor of the parties. Maybe INEC have a reason why they suddenly did that in the middle of the election. But I've said not transmitting the result as alluded by them consistently will be a serious issue. Thank you.
Yeah, my take is that the just concluded election was poorly done, poorly handled, obviously manipulated, obviously compromised. There's no question about that. That the Electoral Act of 2022 makes it clear in several sections that you must upload results from the polling units. And there are about 127,974 polling units in Nigeria. The constitutional requirement is that you must upload results from these polling units. But what we saw was INEC resorting to manual, mutilating results, shutting down their portal for over 24 hours, during which time all the doctoring and surgical operations had taken place. The election was therefore not fair, it was not transparent, it was not genuine, it was not credible. And so the emergent president-elect is going to carry a very strong, heavy burden of legitimacy and lack of it on his neck like an albatross. It doesn't require even demonstrations or protests on the streets to drive home this point. The issue is a moral burden on him. And not only that, it is clear from the provisions of the Constitution. If you check sections 132 to 134, that the winner of the presidential election must not only win plurality of the votes, that is the most number of votes, he must also win 25% in each of at least 2/3 of the Nigerian states and the Federal Capital Territory. What does that mean? You must get 25% in 24 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not score 25% in FCT. Well, I do not know, but even if he scored in 24 without scoring 25% in FCT, he could not and he should not have been declared president-elect, as INEC wrongly did. So all these are matters that must and will be challenged at the tribunals. From INEC, nothing positive can be expected from the present INEC as it is presently constituted. Nothing. For the judiciary, my advice to it is that in deciding this case, it must look critically at the justice of the matter, not at technicalities. It must look at the wishes of the Nigerian people as expressed through the polls, not technicality. I do not want a judiciary. I have already said many times that Nigeria does not operate democracy, which was a word coined or defined by Abraham Lincoln, a former American president, on the 19th of November, 1863, that we do not operate democracy, but we operate many crises which are not demo. One of them, I said, is judocracy. Judocracy is a warped, corrupted form of democracy in which a president or a governor is put up through a fundamentally flawed process which did not represent the will of the people, and then the people quarrel and they go before the judiciary, and the judiciary midwives, incubates and delivers a president or a governor or a senator for the people, probably against the wish of the people. I call it judocracy. I've also extracted and formulated what you call electionocracy. Electionocracy is another crazy by which Nigerians every 4 years go through the rituals of going for elections or selection, like has just happened, and I will say continue on the 11th. And after that, the governor or president uses the first 1 year studying the system, going around to thank the people. The second year to do one or two little things, including roads that will be washed up after the first rainfall. Then starts from the third year for campaigning secretly, and from the fourth year from openly campaigning. So democracy dividends would not have come to the people. Then executocracy is that when that president or governor now comes to office, instead of making laws for the peace, order, and good government of Nigeria, as is provided for in Section 5 of the Constitution, he goes about terrorizing other arms of government, impoverishing the people, enthroning corruption, insecurity, and economic deficiency. That is executocracy. Then finally we have legislatocracy, which is another crazy, by which the legislature, rather than make laws for the order, good governance, and peace of Nigeria, they make laws for their pockets. They pad up budgets. They use their oversight functions to blackmail members of the executive, to pad up budgets so that they can have their own. And then they give them what you call constituency projects, which are monies they put in their pockets, never for their constituencies. By the way, what is the business of a lawmaker with attracting constituency projects for his people? That's the job of the executive. A lawmaker is to make laws. Simple. So until we change this mindset, this analog way of doing things, we can't go forward.